This is
Now,
the predicament
now we're
that
on.
comes from the problem that is how can you as a group of people that have migrated into the other side of the world, which has always been happening since the beginning of humanity,
Yeah, but
how
start
can
from
you
the beginning.
still
Start from the beginning. Okay, so um, but how much information will we divulge is the question.
عادي no limit. I mean, obviously the problem, the whole conversation started from the uh, the Somali clan meeting that we had that transcends time. It was through Zoom. This is like one of the interesting stuff also. Like عادي that having yeah. So anyway, it's like it was a Zoom meeting of a clan meeting that comes from the problem of one of my siblings changing their
Yeah.
last name. That's a grave mistake in a society that values your lineage as much as we value
But I
that.
mean, it isn't a common thing. I don't think it has to do with specifically the Somali community, because in general, if you start changing your name, your name is part of your identity in a sense. So you changing your name means you are changing some part of your identity. So I think whether you would be Somali, Swedish, whoever, I think you would still the parents would feel some type of way because they gave you that name in essence. And it depends also on why you wanna change your name.
Mm,
I don't think it would be just a it would just be normal, or it would be. I don't think if somebody did that, whatever culture they come from, if somebody did that, I don't think it would be of no consequence.
exactly. It's always gonna leave that as this emotional connection with that name you gave your child. You're right. But then what I'm talking about specifically is like tribalist people, like people who identify themselves according to their tribe more than any nationality. And
Mm,
that's like Somalis and Arabs as well, but not all Arabs, but the Saudis and them Khalijis.
yeah.
They do that is because it's really easy to identify a tribe when you and your tribe are always on the move.
Okay.
Since they're always going after water, it's really easy to keep track on who's in our like tribe in a sense. And then you can
Okay.
go and marry someone else. And the only way that you can actually and you can go marry someone else and join their tribe. But the only way that you can still keep track on where you just came from and where all of that is through your lineage. And that's why they care so much about lineage. So I feel like with my parents specifically, it was double the trouble, double the
Okay.
pain. Of
Okay.
like, okay, this is the emotion. I give you this name, but you're also abandoning us. So
Mm,
that it translates to the same problem that I was saying, which is like, how do you navigate like, keeping a sense of self and identity while at the same time seeing your children having a different identity than yours. Although that's always the case, like even if you are in whatever country you are, like when you have your children from a different generation, how they talk, their language, their like values and set of values and all of that. Not just values, but like their view on the world changes. We have Gen Zers, like the Gen Zers having millennial parents or Gen X parents. They
yeah.
they they don't understand each other in a sense. But I
Mm,
feel like that kind of gets double the trouble. It gets more what is it called?
yeah.
Uh, Extensive in a sense when you're dealing with the second generation immigrants and the third generation immigrants.
When you're dealing with second generation and third generation immigrants, it gets a bit more. I
Even
think, yeah, I
sticky,
understand what you mean,
stickier
because
and
it
muddy.
could be, it is in a sense that, understandable. If this happened, for example, in a white family, it would be a bit understandable. But if it happened in a non-white family, it would not be as understandable.
Yeah, no. There is no understanding, and this is the problem. Also, is like the understanding. It goes both ways. Like
Yeah,
yeah. One of the sentiments that my brother he made that I was very interested in,
yeah,
where I was of the opinion, like I do consider myself very open minded and all of that, but I am of the opinion of not changing your name.
yeah.
I'm of that opinion personally,
So
and
tell me what happened. Okay, so basically, your mom found out that he changed his name, and
yes, and
then
and the guy didn't just change his name.
so
So
let's
and then
start from the
also it's
beginning. Let's start from the
understandable for
beginning.
his case
Let's start.
specifically,
Let's start from the beginning. Okay. You're a Somali family, obviously, and
of
then
course.
one of your siblings decided to change their last name
For first and last name.
and first name, their
Yes.
last name and first name, and was found out by but this was found out by your mom
Accident.
and dad by
Exactly.
accident. He
Yep.
wasn't planning on telling them, was he? I think that itself says something like when it comes to people having that kind of relationship with their parents, I think that says something. But we'll put that to the side. Um, so what your mom found out, and now she basically
He's
called
mad.
everybody for a meeting
Exactly.
to discuss this issue. Was it to discuss the issue, or was it to reprimand the issue?
Very good question. Very good question. There was no discussion, and that's how it goes. I
Okay.
like how you know yourself. There's no discussion because
Okay.
a discussion, and this is why I said like gar. That's what they call it usually. This specific type of sitting, which is you come there with already your mind is made.
Okay.
Everybody's mind is made, and you come there with knowing who is the assault, like the assaultant.
Okay.
The guy who did
So
the problem.
basically, there is
And
a victim and a perpetrator
exactly,
mentality.
it's some
Or,
some sort of a code.
would you be able to say victim perpetrators? Perpetrator and victim? Would you use those kind of labels, or because I don't
Yes, you
see
would
the
have to
parent
use
as the
that
victim?
kind of label because
Uh,
in that society
who's the
specifically,
victim then? The parent.
listen, let me just go a little bit deeper on this one. In this
Uh,
type of society, so you have that specific type of sitting and structure that you're bringing with you wherever you go. So
okay.
now this is like fucking like moving from moving outside of Somalia in the 90s. That's when my parents left Somalia in a sense,
Yeah.
and taking with you a certain tradition that you had with you from
Okay.
that time at that place with you everywhere in the world.
Okay.
Obviously, it's not gonna apply the same way. So
Mm,
the problem is that back then they didn't have these small problems. Like if it's not that big of a problem, of course not the biggest of the tribes are gonna sit down and start talking about it. Like or
okay.
within your tribe, I mean, the elders of the tribe are not gonna come together unless it's a really like a big problem. So the
Okay.
problem is that you are bringing that type of thing into a really different type of like because they never had to deal with the fact that oh yeah one of your children goes to the authorities and changes their legal name. That was never a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's obviously like when you have the wrong dynamic that you cannot call it wrong either because it's like it's the way that they understand the world that if somebody's
Okay.
wrong they have to admit that they're wrong. They have to sit in front of everybody else, admit that they're wrong, right? And everybody else obviously
Isn't that
has
natural though?
the retro
Does it come from a specific culture, or
yes,
is it
yes,
natural within human beings that
natural
people
that
just
you as a human being will can carry the your view like your understanding of the world wherever you go with you. That's very natural.
okay?
But what's not natural is using that victim perpetrator relationship into a problem that is this small in a sense. And I felt it. At some point I started feeling bad for him because although I agree with my parents in the sense for different reasons that they have for not changing names. Although
Yeah.
I agree with them, I couldn't help myself but kind of hold back because I saw that everybody there is like attacking the kid. They're like, oh
Okay.
yeah, you shouldn't have done this. Like, yeah, you shouldn't have each and every motherfucker. So it
What
felt like
did the
more of a bullying session.
Abdul Shakur or let's maybe not name names. What did the older one of your siblings say?
That's what I mean. No, but the fun part is the fact that this guy he's logged in with a different name than his
Okay.
actual name. Because
Okay.
this guy he changed his name as well.
But what is it with you guys and changing names? Like, what
No,
is it with you
because
guys?
you can understand it. I'm gonna give you the example of this guy that just changed his name. It's not the exact name. But the
Mm.
problem is like
Yeah, we're talking
Mahmoud
now about
Mahmoud.
one of your brothers
No.
who
This
is not the.
specific one that just changed his name. I'm gonna give you a
Okay, we're talking
example
about
of
the
how the name
specific
sounds.
one that changed it. Okay, just so we
But I'm
can
not gonna
keep
tell you
track.
the exact name, but it's like how it
Okay, let's
spells,
keep
right?
track. Let's keep
First
track of
and
who
last
we're
name.
talking about. Wait, wait.
Exactly. This is I'm talking
Let's.
about the first guy, like the guy who just changed his name.
Yeah, the guy who changed his name. Or,
His name, first last name is literally the same name.
okay.
And this is like the problem when you carry your way of naming yourself into another country. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't add up. So having the first and last name, which is the same, although it
Okay.
happens, like there was this guy that I saw recently. His name is Arnes Anderson,
Okay.
which is
Anderson. Yeah.
exactly. So it's like it
Yeah.
can work sometimes, but this specific one doesn't work. His name is like
Okay.
Mahmoud basically. So
Okay.
so so it's like it doesn't really work.
Okay, but okay,
Uh,
let's analyze that. Okay,
yeah.
you said something that's an obvious reason why somebody would do that, or an understandable reason why somebody would change their name, is that that name does not work in the current context they live in. Okay, but let's take a look at let's say many immigrants who come to different countries that still keep their names, and they still because it signifies sort of identity. But at the same time, there are certain immigrants, for example, specifically the ones that come from Eastern Europe, that whenever we have a friend who's Russian too, he is originally Armenian, but his name has been Russianified, sort of. His dad's like his grandfather's name is an Armenian name that sounds Russian. It has been Russianified, and usually Eastern Europeans, they have that tendency whenever they move into a new place, they keep their name, but they make it so that it fits the context they live in. So
Yeah.
that exists, and I think there is something good with there is something nice about that, but I don't think it's the only way to do things. For example, I know there was this interesting I think semi-politician whose name, I think you know what I'm talking about. Her name was like something something Abrahamson or Mohammedson or something. So it sounds weird, but
But it's not semi-politician, is it? Is it she's the head? The are we
no,
talking about the same?
I don't think it's that person. It might be that person actually. It
Are
might
we
be.
not talking about drop names, bro? Mohammed Son, like the liberal
Yeah,
and us
the political
party leader.
party leader. Maybe actually,
Mohammed
liberal
Son,
and
that's her name. Mohammed
yeah,
Son.
yeah. So maybe sir, maybe sir. Yeah, actually, maybe sir.
She's
So
Iranian, right?
she's Iran. Usually,
That's a
Iran
really
is
good
they do a lot.
case study. That's a good case study in this specific topic that we're talking about. It's a really
Okay,
good case study, I think, personally. But going back to this, what you said, like it
okay.
doesn't have to be that way.
It
Right
doesn't
now, it
have to
doesn't.
be that way
Right
necessarily,
now, it doesn't.
but
Right
okay,
now, it doesn't.
okay. So do you mean that? Do you mean that
In this
if
day and
your
age,
name,
it doesn't.
if your name is, I don't know.
Ilhan Omar, you can
Uh,
become congresswoman.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly,
But
and that's what I mean. Like in this day and age, it doesn't. You can have your name, and actually,
what's
that's
the
not.
ideal then? What's the ideal? If you move into a
That's
new
the ideal,
country,
in my opinion, to
if
hold
you
your
move
name.
into a new country and then your name is, let's say, Benjamin. Benjamin sounds very Arabic or it sounds non-Western, but you're in a Western country, so instead you would say
Benjamin is
Benjamin
very Western,
or Benjamin. But I
horrible.
mean the name is it's a
I'm
biblical name,
sorry for
but
calling you out. That's
well,
it's a horrible example. like
okay, but
I
I
had a
mean,
Swedish,
but I
I had a
mean, okay,
Swedish
let's take an example. Ibrahim,
blind. Same. Also,
Ibrahim.
mm,
It sounds Arabic. It sounds like non-Western. But since you moving to a Western country, you would say Abraham if it's
mm,
in
mm,
Sweden, or Abraham if it's in like
mm.
Would you? Is that the ideal? You mean? Let's say you have names that sound that could sound. You could make it sound Western. Let's take that as an example. Would be the ideal?
I believe personally that the ideal is to hold it on to your exact name with the
Okay.
exact pronunciation that you have, because you know
Exactly.
that,
Yeah.
that many ways, many names have like same name but pronounced differently depending on
Yeah.
where you got the name from, right?
Okay.
So for example, you have me, like my name is Abdulaziz Abdurrahman Muhammad,
Okay.
right? Abdulaziz Abdurrahman Muhammad is my name.
Uh,
And that is not how you pronounce it. Like the actual name that you pronounce the name, if you speak in Arabic, is Abdulaziz Abdurrahman Muhammad. And
okay.
that's not the same way that you would pronounce my name because I'm Somali, you know?
Yeah.
And the reason why I feel like I would never change my name, I mean, I have contemplated the idea of changing my first name into making it that, Aziz only.
Yeah.
But I genuinely, because it sounds better. That's the only reason why I would do it.
Yeah.
But like ideologically, I believe that holding on into your specific exact name is the best way to do it. And the reason is same reason as to why archiving is important. The reason the only way that you can actually understand the background, socio-economical background of a certain group is
Yeah.
by studying such things, which is your name. Although it doesn't have to exactly mean that your name is a representative of where you come from. It means that exactly that time that you were named that name,
Yeah.
there was a historical context to it.
Okay,
So,
could you okay, let's what's the disadvantages of you keeping your name
the
when
advantages, let me
you're
tell you about the advantages real fast. The,
okay.
the, the idea is that me as a Somali to be named three names that are not Somali,
Yeah.
it has a historical, what is it called, explanation.
Okay, now so you're talking about now that you even your name, or let's say a name like Muhammad, it's
Muhammad,
within
it's not Somali,
itself
is
is
it?
not Somali, so
It's
that's
not.
okay.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, holding on into it, it doesn't mean that you are holding on into the Somali identity,
Yeah.
No, it's that the same, your identity. myself, both my father and my granddad were
Yeah.
not okay, victims, but they were a result of a specific historical what
Yeah.
is it called context that the country was in at the time, and
Yeah.
that is what explains my name, right? And I feel like just changing that and throwing it and then going with whatever whimsical name that you feel like at the moment, kind
Yeah.
of, it's like the same. It has the same what is it called consequence as like
Yeah.
messing around with history libraries and like
Yeah, but
kind
if
of
we
burning
take if
down
we
missing
take your logic, that would mean that if you're naming your child, you can only name them something. If you're Somali, you can only name them a Somali name. If
no,
you're not,
but no, but we you and me have Somali names are not Somali.
yeah, they're not
My
Somali,
point,
but
my point is that
people
whatever you name
should
your
be.
child, it doesn't make sense at the time. It would make sense to you as a
Yeah.
parent. It would make sense to you and your immediate surrounding, right? It doesn't have to
Okay.
make sense to your great grandfathers. It doesn't need to make sense to your great grandchildren. But the
Yeah.
idea is that it needs to make sense to you, so that
Okay. So, but
that
and it makes sense to your dad, for
exactly, because
example.
you then you can understand it. You'll be like, okay, your name is that, okay, because of that, what was happening? Because you have, for example, people who were born. This is kind of messed up, but people who were born post 9/11,
Okay.
especially in 2001, many mothers, what is it called, named their children Osama,
Yeah.
and because of that, that because at the time there was this Arab nationalism that was
Yeah.
very much
Yeah.
predominant, especially Ayam Saddam Hussein and all of those guys. So they
Yeah.
felt like a blow to the Western world made by Osama bin Laden. What's his name? Osama bin
Osama bin
Laden
Laden. Yeah.
was a victory for them. That's
Mm.
why they named their children Osama. So
Mm.
that is looking at that person, for example. Obviously, they haven't committed any wrong,
Okay.
but you can understand, like there is history behind names. Is what I'm saying. And
Okay.
holding on to that, it has just like a, what is it called, a value that should not just be kind of thrown
Okay,
around.
but
Yeah,
what if somebody says, so I'm free, I'm a free
yes,
person,
and they are free, and that's where it comes down to with our
I'm an
brothers
adult and
specifically.
I can do whatever I
Yeah, and
want.
I want to do it. I'm gonna do it. Then they do it,
But
obviously.
I
And this
mean,
is that's
say
what I
doing,
meant by the fact that we can do it today. Today we are at a point in life in humanity, which is I'm thankful for. But God knows, like we could be going backwards soon enough, and
yeah,
we can actually, we would actually kind of have this xenophobia is very much what is it called, predominant in Western societies. But for now, we live in a world where you can have your name. That is very weird, like mine, very fucking difficult to pronounce. Most people struggle to pronounce it
yeah,
and still live life as any other person.
okay,
I do not face day to day prejudice, in my opinion, because of my name, and I'm very thankful for that. But at the same time,
okay.
there are people that could feel like they're out of fear. They will be like, okay, maybe the society is not going to accept me if I don't have that name. It's understandable. And
That exists also. Do you know there's this guy named he's Swedish.
jihad.
No, there's this guy who was a semi-politician. He was a police before, and he wrote a book about
Oh yeah.
saying that people should actually people should change their name to sound more Western because
Mm.
it's just better. So there is that aspect, there is that element of society now where there are studies that say that if you have a name that does not sound Western, it reduces your opportunities in a sense.
That's true.
Um, so with that in mind, should people bend towards the will of society and just have an extra name? Because, for example, let's say your name is Aziz. You could have a white-sounding name, and you could have a white-sounding name that is that is your middle name or something, or your
Mm.
first name or whatever, and you can use that in your day-to-day. But then when you're at home, somebody calls you Aziz.
No,
Okay.
that's not bending to the will of society. That to
Uh,
me is bending to the will of the current society. Because in
current
my
society.
opinion, is that society, if you look at it as a whole, in a sense, what it comes down to is a bunch of humans living together. And
Mm,
in any society, what society wants is assimilation, and that happens regardless. Like
okay.
with enough time, whoever is living at that land, they're gonna assimilate to the point where you cannot really differentiate that much between them, no matter where you are.
Okay.
But it has happened that the globalization hasn't really been like it has been a thing, but not really to the extent that it has been in recent years. To the point where you see people like you and me walking around and we are very easily distinguishable from
Yeah.
a ethnic Swedish person, for example,
Yeah, because of
right?
how we look like,
Because how
or
you look, right? But that was not a case before. Before it was that people would move, but they would move to close
uh,
places
pr-
where they kind of
people
look
looked
somewhat
the same.
similar.
Yeah.
exactly. Somebody
Iran, Iran, Iraq, you know.
exactly, like in all of these countries, even Sweden, for example, like you have the
Sweden,
Samis and
Norway,
then
you
you
know.
have the ethnic Swedes by now. And at
Yeah,
the time, you could not really distinguish between them by look, but you could still distinguish between them in a sense
yeah,
when they kind of
because of their names, because of how they speak, and
exactly. Now, fast forward how many hundred years has it been now since the Swedes kind of occupied this land, and you
yeah,
cannot not distinguish between them unless they tell you that they have a historical background.
yeah.
So that's what's going to happen in these societies that have people that are coming from other sides of the world. They have different names and different looks and all
Okay,
of that. At some
okay,
point, the society is going to assimilate to the point where you cannot distinguish between people. But the question is, are you going to be a catalyst for that to happen, like you and me walking around getting people to, and right now people are much more like it rarely happens that somebody, especially in society situations where they need to read out my name, where they would be like what the fuck is this? And then I remember specifically, this is a nice antidote, I feel like. First year we were in Sweden, we had a teacher whose name was Benjamin, actually, who was
yeah,
Swedish,
yeah,
and the guy who was teaching history, and I remember I was with my brother Abdullahi. His name was Abdullahi, right?
yeah.
So he was late that day. So he was like, "Oh, your brother is not here." And he's like, "What was his name?" And I was like, Abdullah. So the guy was like, "Is it Abdullahi with the I? Is it Abdullah or is it Abdullahi?" So he knows all the different versions, and I was shook at the time. I'm like, oh, "What?
White. He was white.
Huh? Huh?"
He was white. He was white.
He was Swedish. His name was Benjamin Andersson or something like that. The guy was what do you call it? Is ethnic Swedish, And I was shook at the time. I'm like, what? How do you even? But right now, it makes a lot of sense. Like when you walk around, you see so many people that have non-white Western names, and it becomes normal. Like it rarely happens that for me, somebody is shook by my name or has a difficult time. Every time I'm expecting somebody to butcher my name, they actually pronounce it properly. So
Okay,
so I,
but
that's
Aziz is easy to pronounce.
Abdul Aziz. No one are you reading my full name?
Ah, Abdulaziz. Okay,
Exactly.
okay. So okay, if we try to find a conclusion, okay.
No, but my
Uh,
point was that like simply that the only reason why we don't have so much hard time walking around using our actual name is because there was people before us that didn't bend into societies
yeah.
once and actually force people to be okay with accept
Okay.
knowing that
So
there are people with different
what
names.
is causing? In your opinion, you wouldn't change your name because
No,
you wouldn't change your name because it has some historical value that you
yes,
cherish. Okay.
yes,
But other than that historical value, there's also that aspect of you. If you change your name, that's a way of sort of wanting to assimilate, or wanting to basically, it might come from a sort of inferiority complex where you feel like you have to look like or sound, or you have to be similar to the majority sort of population,
mm,
and that maybe is a weak mindset, whatever you might see it as. Another person might be doing it just because they just wanna do it. They just want to do it. They don't find some sort of they don't associate their name with the historical significance or any the importance that you do. Okay, if you would now, okay, but why do you think your brother is doing it then?
that's exactly the last reason why you mentioned, which is, and I
Oh,
feel like which it comes down to ultimately, which is the dominant culture, the concept of the dominant culture, which is the Western culture, because this is where it comes down. Like he was told that's what my dad was said that you are weak in the mind.
Did he
You
say? Okay, let's like to talk about what actually happened. So how did it end up? How did the meeting sort of go? Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
how what? Because
I'm gonna tell
everybody
you
was
their
there.
arguments. I'm gonna tell you what
Okay.
arguments they were using. But
Okay.
one of the arguments they were using was this one, where he was like, "You are weak mentally. You are looking at the white people. They're like, what white people do? Oh yeah, the husband, the wife have the same last name, and that's one of the main problems, which
Okay.
is like they have the same last name. Okay, let's do that." And then that my brother took that personally. He was like, "Well, do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I'm walking around looking at people and be like, oh yeah, I want to do this and I want to do that. I'm just copying people left and right."
Okay.
It's like, I'm not doing that. It's a normal thing for people to take their husband or spouse last name.
Okay.
And that was my point. Ultimately, it comes down to that dominant culture. What is it that makes him think it's normal when in reality it's just
Which is not.
a custom, like any other custom in the world that you have. Like different societies have their own customs and traditions. So what is it that makes him think that one of them is normal? or
Okay.
quote unquote
Do
normal.
you think it comes from a sort of inferiority complex?
It's not inferiority, but you are inferior. Like you, it's like there's the you perception of you being perceiving yourself as inferior, and then being
Okay.
actually inferior. Like in this day and age,
Mm,
the people who have originally non-Western, what do you call it, traditions and customs, they are inferior in the economical sense, in the power,
mm,
like military sense, in all of those ways, they are inferior. And
okay.
what happens every time, that is that whichever superior culture becomes the dominant culture, becomes the
Okay.
normal culture. And that was, what do you call it, that's to answer your question from earlier. But 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 what arguments they were using was mostly emotional, as you said, like there was
Okay.
the,
So what?
the
Your mom and dad were basically saying like, why are you doing
my
that?
mom
يعني,
specifically was using the argument that she has fought for that name because she wanted to name Mohammed. She wanted to name what
okay.
that guy exactly his name is for all of us. It's a name that she really likes,
Okay.
basically. So she was appealing from an emotional perspective, but also the fact
Yeah,
that
but is that wrong? Because
the fact that it's haram.
as a human being, you don't live in society by yourself. You live with other people, and you should, in a sense, like if I'm your friend, if I am doing something that is hurting your feelings, why would I do that? Like, I should maybe think
But
about
that's
that.
also where he comes in, and he's like, this is the problem ultimately, where the
Your
miscommunication
feelings
is at.
shouldn't be hurt. Like that's
No, no,
crazy.
where he's coming from is a heightened sense of individuality. Like I
Mm,
am a person, and me as a person, I have to have the freedom to make my own decisions.
okay.
Like the
How did it end, Marka? How did it end in the end?
emphasis on freedom doesn't come from nowhere. Also, it's like
Yeah.
it was a cultural war that has been fought through
Okay.
neoliberalism, which is our religion, our current religion. That is the
Okay.
norm, basically. But besides that, another argument she was using was the fact that it's haram to change your
It's not
last name.
haram to change the name, is
Yes,
it?
and what she was using was specifically the, what is it called? The ayah about adoption. Like
About the adoption, yeah.
exactly.
Saying that somebody else is your father when it
Specifically,
is not.
exactly, calling somebody else using, like, وَادْعُوهُمْ بِأَسْمَاءِ آبَائِهِم,
Yes, my
which is
أبائهم.
exactly, which is like, like call them with their parents' names.
And
And I
if
feel
they
like
don't
that was a
have
different
this,
issue. I think she was
yeah,
that specific ayah was dealing with a different issue,
yeah.
which was like, adopting, like, what do
Because
you call it?
technically speaking, somebody just because somebody has their official name, somebody else doesn't mean they're being called that. They
Exactly.
could
Number
still
one.
be being called. It's not like he's saying that somebody else is my dad. So I don't
And
think
that was
that
the thing
applies.
with lineage. I feel like that was an Arab thing. I feel like, and that's what Muhammad was doing. He was making a president, a new thing into
Yeah.
the Arab world, which is giving your lineage to somebody else just out of pure will, and that was not
Okay.
something Arabs would accept at the time. But
Okay.
God didn't accept it either, and that's why He
Okay.
got the ayah.
Because there's a sort of importance when it comes to lineage and all of
Lineage
that.
is really really important to Arabs,
Yeah.
with lineage, but
Yeah.
and that's a
But
different
how did it
topic.
end? So how did it end in the end?
It was an emotional conversation ultimately. So I feel like he just appealed to their emotional side ultimately, and he said he's gonna
Yeah.
change his
But I
ways of
mean,
thinking.
if I think this is a problem that many face when it comes to there is a culture. The thing we talked about in the beginning, there's a cultural clash, or a generational gap that makes it very hard to discuss certain issues between a parent and a child,
Because you're
specifically.
ultimately not discussing the issue itself. What you're
Yeah.
discussing is where you feel comfortable showing that issue.
But at the
Because
same time,
the
you need
issue
to understand the person needs to understand where it comes from,
exactly.
where they
Because
come
the
from,
problem,
right?
I feel like what they were.
The big question in that case is just my wants and desires. Does that trump basically just hurting somebody I am close to their feelings?
Yeah.
Because in essence, due to pure logic, there is no reason why it's bad that he should change their name. You could say you should. Why are you changing your name? Are you like? Do you feel inferior to? Did he change his name to something white?
Mm, let me
No.
see, bro. This is a good question.
Did
So
he
what he
change?
says is that he researched old Somali names, and he chose one from there. But the name doesn't sound too Somali, which
Okay,
is
but it's not a white name.
Canaan. Canaan.
Okay, that's not that's like exactly how did it spell?
Canaan in the English way, you know.
Okay, that's not really,
But
but it's
it's
not
like
typical.
a
It's not
really
typical
old
white
name
name,
as well.
but it's
You
not
know,
typical white name either.
it's not. It's a really really old name. I feel like it's more what do you call it? Hebrew slash what is it
Yeah,
called?
but that name, I remember you told me about it now. That name is very
I
okay.
remember your
But
reaction to
anyway,
it. I was
but anyway. So the case could be made that the only
So what you're
thing
saying is
saved
that
this,
if you're as do your
because in essence, if you
wants
use logic, if we
the triumph over somebody else's emotions, and this is the problem. This is like, why is it even that this person's emotions are linked to what do you call it? Where is that
that
divide coming from? That's where I would take it
yeah,
personally.
but there
Why
is
is there?
something
Why is it?
there is
Because I don't feel that this was an issue back in the day. Like back in the day, specifically in our cultures, you know, the one that we are using that framework. Ultimately, we are using the framework of Somali culture in order to deal with today's problems, which is
yeah.
very, like
Do you mean
like
like if somebody changed name,
it would
they would,
never be an issue. Like I feel like
yeah,
a really similar.
because
I feel like a very similar problem that existed back in my grandma's time, granddad's time. Is I remember one of my uncles when he was sent into Soviet Russia to study sea captainship or whatever it's called.
okay,
The guy he came back with a habit, and that
okay,
habit was very much frowned upon among Somalis, but specifically my granddad. I remember about how my mom was telling me about the story that my granddad was very angry and he cursed him. You
okay,
know, this is like na'lad, you know, the
yeah,
concept
no,
of
like that.
na'lad exactly. And my mom believes, and not just my mom, but I assume like everybody from her family as well, that the guy he ended up struggling in life later on, and the reason for that is because of that na'lad from back then. That's the
Okay,
whole idea with the because it's yeah. I mean, we could explain the
yeah, yeah.
concept of na'lad now. That was
That is
gonna take a
another
while,
discussion. That's
but,
another initiative. But
but
nalad means basically somebody's cursing you.
exactly. So that curse kind of followed him for the rest of his life, is what they believe. But the
Yeah.
idea is that what he came back with was the smoking cigarettes, right?
Okay, then.
Exactly. So that was not as the only problem that they had with it. It was not even a health problem because at the
Yeah.
time it was not
It's
really
just like
known
it's
that
not
it was
part of the
that.
culture.
It's just culture. Like
It's not
they were
even
like
religious, يعني,
it
because
didn't
there
have
is
nothing to do with anything. It was just the fact that this is a Western thing. Like we know that
yeah.
Western people do this.
Even
Or
like surwal, like pants. Why is a woman wearing pants? It's like this is
it
Western.
was not. It was not. They were not wearing pants at the time.
What? But I mean, like if a Somali girl or in the 90s was wearing
This is
pants,
not
she
the
is
90s.
very,
This is like 670s.
yeah, but
Like this.
still, I mean,
Exactly.
like the same. It's the same kind of issue.
Same concept.
And
So I feel like it's the
even
same
there was a
thing.
time that there's this discrepancy where when something comes from the West, and I think this is a whole different discussion. But the reason, I think, one of the reasons why the Islamic Empire had its downfall was that it wasn't willing to adapt to or accept innovation from the West. The
Mm.
printing of the printing press and all of that, it started in, like, in a
Yes.
sense, Italy, and that's where it started, and they
Yes.
weren't willing to adopt that because
Mm.
it came from the West, and
Yeah.
that same mentality is within many Muslim societies,
Which is understandable as well.
which is
Like
very understandable. It's very understandable, but it originates from a sense of superiority, where it's
mm,
like we're superior, we're bad, and there is that element within within Islam that everybody else is kafir. You're the best ummah and all of that, and that's a whole different discussion. I'm not saying it's bad to think like that, but when it creates a sort of kibr, like a sort of arrogance, it's very problematic.
mm,
And then the main problem is when this is juxtaposed with a sense of with the religion. The reason why you think like that is because of religion, and that I'm very against. Because religion never says that. There was a time within the Islamic scholarship, people were against using microphones because they said that it came from the West. But
mm,
later on, it was adopted. Every
mm,
single time when something new happens, when something new comes from the West, within even higher echelons within the scholarship of Islam, they go against that and say, no, this is from the West, it's haram, haram. But
mm.
the idea that it's haram doesn't even, it's not even. It's something that's you could make. They try to make the argument that it's haram, but it's not actually haram,
Nah.
and it generally comes from this sort of scarce, like fear and superiority complex, and also it comes from this idea that this fear that this is going to change the culture that we have.
Exactly. I feel like that's also besides because I feel like you're right. Like all of these things that you're saying that it comes from, I feel like those are the tools that the people in power use in order to sedate the people. Because whatever that is
Okay.
commonly accepted by a group of people,
We
that's
have to finish in
is
a minute.
exactly in 1 minute.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So no. I feel like this is true, but I feel like this is would be used as a tool. But ultimately, where it comes from was that the ruling class did not want the West to win the ideological warfare. Because at the
Okay.
time, with the printing press, what was coming with it was libertarian ways of thinking.
Yeah.
That freedom of they're taking away the like it came along with the Renaissance here, and
Yeah.
as the church was losing their power. So
Power. Yeah.
imagine the Ottoman Empire accepting the printing press, and with those ideas that's coming with the printing press, that
Okay.
that you don't need to listen to your sheikh, and that liberty and self-determination and all of those things. Like
Yeah.
those ideas are obviously they're gonna fight them, and they're gonna use certain things like religion, because that's always what has always been used in
Okay.
order to sedate the people, which is religion and whatever that's gonna make you feel better than
Yeah.
other people,
Okay.
and it's being used until today. So
Okay, but so how did it? So how did the conversation end? Like it just there was no
no,
conclusion.
no end. All the conversation is gonna end, but the ultimate discussion, the ultimate debate is not gonna end. How are we
Okay.
supposed to deal with this identity shift that is happening in these countries? It's not.
Okay.
It's not. It's not a question. It's not a debate.
So your parents didn't get what they wanted.
Obviously not. But nobody's gonna get what they want.
Nobody's gonna get. Okay.
That's the old.
Okay, bro. Okay, bro.
You
We'll
get what you
have to
deserve,
end
I
it
guess.
here. We have to end it. Actually, I think this is very nice. Actually, I
You
think
went
we
to
should
very nice.
do reoccurring events like this, where we make it sort of like once. Wait, 1 second. Where we make this like once a week. We just have this kind of discussion.
Yes. Yes. I'm more than down. Well, I feel like the conversation will go, it flows really, because I
Yeah,
remember sometimes
this
that
is
we're
one of the
actually
best.
recording this.
Actually, it's not even. It's just been 30 minutes, and this is like one of the best
Yeah.
episodes I've had on the
No,
up to now.
but because
And
we
I
have been
wasn't really
doing this.
feeling it in the beginning, to be honest. I was like
What?
very like off. I wasn't
Yeah.
because I haven't eaten food and anything like
Oh
that,
shit.
so I was kind of off. But
Yeah, me
I
too, bro.
wasn't
Me
really
too.
feeling it. But it went.
But it's very
It
easy.
was went very natural. It didn't, because I think you're. I wouldn't say media trained, but I think you're in a
We we
sense.
we have been doing this though.
Yeah, we've been doing it. But at the
So,
same time, we'll have to censor ourselves to a
in a
certain
sense,
extent. But we'll figure it out. I think, to be honest, this we could post this.
perfect, man.
We could post this. I think we could
Yes.
post this,
Yes.
and we'll talk
Or at
about it
least
later.
clip it. The
Yeah,
clippings. You can
most
clip,
definitely.
so you can get some nice clips from this,
Yeah,
like a
most
couple
definitely.
of TikTok clips with some edits. Actually, I can do it too.